The glass walls of TechCorp's conference room seemed to close in as CEO Richard Maxwell delivered his verdict with a smirk. Sarah Chin's accusations are completely false. Her termination is effective immediately. I sat there, surrounded by board members and executives, watching my 5-year career crumble because I dared to speak up. My name is Sarah Chin, and this is how I expose the toxic empire behind Silicon Valley's most ethical company. You can't do this, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I have evidence. What evidence? Richard laughed, spreading his hands to the room. Our IT department has thoroughly reviewed all communications. There's nothing to support your ridiculous claims. Of course there wasn't. They deleted everything after I filed the formal complaint. But they didn't know about my backup server or the software I'd been developing in secret. Sarah, Janet Morris, the head of HR, spoke in her practiced sympathetic tone. These are very serious accusations against our CEO. Without concrete evidence. Just admit you made it up, Richard interrupted. Maybe then we can discuss a reasonable severance package. I looked around the room at the faces I'd worked with for years. Most avoided my eyes. They'd seen how Richard and his inner circle operated, how they systematically harassed and discredited anyone who challenged them. But TechCorp was worth $1 billion, and Silence bought nice stock options. Only Mark Davies, my immediate supervisor, showed any sign of discomfort. He'd witnessed some of Richard's behavior but was too afraid to speak up. His mortgage and kids' college funds depended on his TechCorp shares. Security will escort you out, Richard continued, clearly enjoying the moment. And Sarah? Good luck finding another job in tech after this. Silicon Valley's a small world. As security led me to my desk to collect my belongings, I thought about the past 6 months. The inappropriate comments had started after I was promoted to lead software architect. Then came the private meetings where Richard made his expectations clear. When I refused his advances, the retaliation began. Projects reassigned. Credit for my work given to others. Subtle undermining in meetings. Classic patterns, but handled so skillfully that each individual incident seemed minor. Until I developed NeuralTrace. The software was supposed to be for tracking user behavior patterns in TechCorp's apps. But I discovered it could do something else. Recover deleted data by analyzing network traffic patterns and reconstructing digital footprints. Richard hadn't known about that capability when he ordered it to clean up certain email threads. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and made 3 calls. First, to Maya Patel at the SEC's Cybercrime Division. Second, to my lawyer. Third, to someone who'd been waiting for this moment, Jennifer Roberts, Richard's former assistant who'd been paid to stay quiet 2 years ago. It's time, I told her. Are you ready? God, yes, she replied. I've kept everything. At home, I activated my private server. For months, I've been quietly backing up TechCorp's network traffic. Not the content, that would have been illegal. Just the metadata, the digital equivalent of watching people's shadows without seeing the people themselves. NeuralTrace could reconstruct those shadows into something more substantial. My phone buzzed. A text from Mark. I'm sorry. You know I can't. My family. I didn't respond. Mark's cowardice was disappointing but useful. His guilty conscience might make him valuable later. Another message popped up, this one from Richard. Be smart about this. Take the severance. Don't destroy your future. Future. I thought about the other women who'd left TechCorp quietly over the years. About the culture of silence Richard had built while presenting himself as a champion of diversity in tech. My laptop pinged. NeuralTrace had finished its initial analysis. The pattern was clear. Systematic harassment, coordinated cover-ups, hush money paid through shell companies. Richard's cleanup hadn't just targeted my evidence. He'd been erasing his tracks for years. But digital shadows are harder to erase than most people realize. Ms. Chen, Maya from the SEC called back. We've reviewed what you sent. It's significant, but we'll need more. Give me 48 hours, I replied. You'll have everything you need. I spent the night coding, refining NeuralTrace's algorithms. By morning, I had reconstructed enough digital trails to prove pattern and intent. Richard hadn't just harassed employees, he created an elaborate system to silence them. The severance agreements, the NDAs, the strategic deletions of evidence, all connected through a web of digital fingerprints he thought were invisible. My phone kept buzzing with texts from concerned colleagues. Most expressed sympathy but offered no support. Silicon Valley runs on stock options and reputations. Nobody wanted to risk either. Then came an email from someone unexpected. Catherine Maxwell, Richard's wife and TechCorp's major shareholder. We should talk. Privately, there are things you need to know. I considered ignoring it. Catherine had a reputation for fiercely defending her husband's interests, but something about the message's timing felt significant. We met at a small coffee shop in Palo Alto, far from TechCorp's usual haunts. Catherine looked different from her polished public appearances, tired, tense. How much have you figured out? She asked without preamble. About the harassment? Or about the shell companies used to pay off victims? She flinched. There's more. Richard, he hasn't just been harassing women. He's been stealing their ideas. Patents that should have belonged to female engineers who left. He claimed them as his own. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. Why are you telling me this? Because I have proof. And because she took a deep breath. Because my daughter just started her first tech job. And I can't bear the thought of her facing what you and the others faced. I studied her carefully. Richard will lose everything if this comes out. Good. Her voice was hard. He deserves to. I spent years making excuses, telling myself it wasn't that bad. But seeing how he treated you, knowing there were others. She pulled out a USB drive. Everything's here. Bank records, original patents, emails I saved before he could delete them. As I drove home, I thought about how many lives Richard's behavior had affected. Not just the direct victims, but the ripple effects, careers derailed, innovations stolen, families impacted. Time to end it. But first, I needed to talk to one more person. Someone who could verify Richard's pattern of theft. Dr. Helen Zhang had been TechCorp's first lead engineer. She'd left abruptly 3 years ago, right after developing the core technology that made the company valuable. The official story was that she had a breakdown. I found her teaching computer science at a community college. I wondered when someone would figure it out, she said when I explained why I was there. Richard thought deleting files would erase the evidence. He never understood that true innovation leaves traces that can't be erased. Will you help me prove it? She smiled. I've been waiting for someone to ask. The next 48 hours transformed Silicon Valley forever. The evidence I gathered wasn't just about harassment. It exposed a systematic pattern of intellectual property theft that had built TechCorp's billion-dollar empire. Dr. Zhang's testimony was devastating. The core algorithm wasn't just stolen from me, she explained to the SEC investigators. Richard Maxwell altered the timestamps on the patent applications, backdating them to before my breakdown. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from former TechCorp employees, each with their own story. The pattern was always the same. Harassment, theft, threats, then silence bought with settlements and NDAs. But Richard had made one crucial mistake. The settlements were paid through a complex web of shell companies, violating SEC disclosure requirements. That gave federal investigators the opening they needed. Ms. Chen, Maya from the SEC called. We're ready to move. But you should know, this goes beyond TechCorp. Maxwell's pattern connects to other tech companies, other CEOs. Taking him down could shake the entire industry. Good, I replied, thinking of all the women whose innovations had been stolen. It needs shaking. Neural Trace had reconstructed more than just deleted emails. It had revealed a network of digital communications between tech executives, sharing strategies for silencing women who dared to challenge them. My laptop pinged with an urgent alert. Someone was trying to hack my backup server. The attack was sophisticated, but I'd been expecting it. The attempted breach just gave me more evidence. They're getting desperate, Catherine Maxwell commented when I told her. She'd become an unexpected ally, providing crucial documentation about Richard's financial schemes. Richard called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. He's going to try to shut this down. I smiled. Perfect. That's exactly what we need. The TechCorp boardroom was packed the next morning. Richard stood at the head of the table, projecting his usual confident authority. These baseless accusations are an attempt to damage our company, he announced. Our lawyers assure me. Actually, I interrupted, walking in with Maya and a team of federal agents. Your lawyers might want to review this first. The evidence was irrefutable. Neural Trace had reconstructed years of deleted communications. Dr. Jung's documentation proved the patent theft. Catherine's financial records exposed the illegal settlements. But it was the video that broke him. I had my office rigged with cameras after the harassment started, Jennifer Roberts announced, playing the footage of Richard explicitly threatening her career. Sarah wasn't his first victim, but she'll be his last. Richard's face turned purple. This is all lies. You can't. Richard Maxwell, Maya stepped forward. You're under arrest for securities fraud, intellectual property theft, and witness tampering. As they led him away in handcuffs, his final words were telling, "You'll never work in tech again." He was wrong. The story exploded across every media outlet. TCHCORPCEO ARESDD in Massive FRAUD Silicon Valley Rostiked by 8ARASSMENT and TGFTSCANDAL. Female engineers reclaim Stioli and patents. The ripple effects were immediate. Other tech companies launched internal investigations. Venture capital firms implemented new oversight procedures. Women across the industry began speaking out about similar experiences. But the real work was just beginning. 3 months later, I stood in TechCorp's renovated headquarters, now renamed Zhangchen Technologies after its true innovators. The board had undergone a complete overhaul, with Dr. Zhang as CEO and a new commitment to ethical innovation. The patents have all been correctly reassigned, my lawyer confirmed. The settlement funds have been redistributed to the rightful inventors, and the SEC is implementing your software as a standard monitoring tool. Neural Trace had evolved into something more powerful, a system for detecting and preventing corporate fraud before it could take root. Other companies were already licensing it, eager to prove their commitment to change. Mark Davies, my former supervisor, asked to meet for coffee. I should have spoken up, he said, unable to meet my eyes. My silence made me complicit. Yes, I agreed, it did. So what are you going to do about it now? He pulled out a folder. Documentation of similar behavior at other companies. People have been reaching out, sharing stories. They need someone to help them fight back. I studied him thoughtfully. Are you ready to risk your stock options for what's right? I have to be. My daughters are watching. The Zhangchen Foundation launched the next week, providing legal and technical support for tech workers facing harassment and discrimination. Jennifer Roberts headed up the advocacy division, turning her experience into a force for change. Catherine Maxwell, after divorcing Richard, became one of our strongest supporters. Real innovation comes from diversity, she told a Women in Tech conference. My ex-husband didn't just harass women, he stole their ideas because he couldn't compete with them fairly. A year after Richard's arrest, I received an email from a young programmer. Your story inspired me to fight back. Because of you, I knew I wasn't alone. That's when I realized the true impact of what we'd done. It wasn't just about exposing one corrupt CEO or saving one company. It was about changing the culture that had protected him. Richard was sentenced to 20 years for fraud and theft. His co-conspirators at other companies faced similar charges. The old boys network that had enabled them began to crumble. But more importantly, women in tech found their voices. The industry's culture of silence gave way to one of accountability and support. Last week, I spoke at MIT's computer science graduation. A student asked what advice I'd give to women entering tech. Your ideas have value, I told them. Your innovations matter. And if anyone tries to steal them or silence you, remember. Digital shadows never really disappear. The truth always leaves traces. Zhangchen Technologies became a model for ethical corporate governance. Our stock price soared as investors recognized that diverse, equitable companies perform better. The patents rightfully reassigned to their female inventors spawned new innovations and startups. Dr. Zhang and I sometimes discuss how different things might have been if we'd had allies earlier, but we don't dwell on the past. We're too busy building a future where talent and innovation matter more than gender or power. Neural Trace continues to evolve, now used by federal agencies to detect corporate fraud patterns. Every time it catches another potential Richard Maxwell, I think about that day in a conference room when he thought he could silence me. The old Silicon Valley ran on stock options and silence. The new one runs on transparency and truth. As for me, I did work in tech again. I owned it. Richard Maxwell's final threat in handcuffs had been right about one thing. I never would work in the old tech industry again. Instead, I helped build a new one. And that made all the difference.